My sister-in-law poisons my food, which ends up being eaten by her husband. She ends up divorced and in jail. I'm 29 years old and have been married to my husband Harry for the past 7 years. I love everything about our marriage except the fact that he's related to his sister Kayla, who brings all the negativity into our lives. She is incredibly negative, manipulative, and toxic. I've worked hard for years to avoid crossing her path because I know what kind of person she is. In the past, my husband had dated my sister-in-law's best friend when he was 17 years old, and later they broke up because he felt he was being pressured to be with her by my sister-in-law. When he turned 23 and found himself single, his sister insisted that he and her friend should be together, but he refused. They had a big fight, and she went crying to her parents about how she wanted him to marry someone she felt comfortable with, but his parents didn't really listen to her. When my husband and I met and fell in love, his parents were very understanding. My sister-in-law always treated me coldly. Every time she was around, she would always bring up Harry's ex-girlfriends for no reason and tell him how they were doing so well and how he should get back in touch with them. This continued for a while, and I wasn't the only one who found this strange, since Harry also found it strange, so he asked her not to continuously mention his ex-girlfriends. My sister-in-law would get angry and start making fun of me, saying that I was getting jealous and that he shouldn't be with an insecure person like me. When his parents invited us to dinner, my sister-in-law would intentionally bring one of Harry's ex-girlfriends, telling us how she had run into them that day by accident, and that she had to invite them to dinner out of courtesy. She also checks my Instagram relentlessly even though she doesn't follow me. I have a public account, so I've noticed how she's the first person to view my story. If a guy comments on my photo, then she goes to her brother and complains about how I was posting inappropriate photos. Harry and I literally laughed at her accusations. When Harry and I decided to move in together, she urged Harry to break up with me, telling him that I had many flaws as a woman and that she could find someone much better than me. This comment honestly hurt me since I had been nothing but kind to her at all times. Unfortunately, as soon as Harry and I got engaged, my sister-in-law's behavior toward me got even worse. When Harry and I announced our engagement, everyone started congratulating us. I noticed that Kayla was very upset and then got up from her chair and left our party to everyone's surprise. Later, she called Harry crying and screaming about how she didn't appreciate being told the news with everyone else since she thought he was closest to her, so she deserved to have been the first to know about his engagement. Then she sent me a message that almost bordered on threatening, saying how I should be a good wife to her brother since she had always been the only woman in his life. The message was so strange that it almost gave me secondhand embarrassment. I didn't even bother responding to her and left her message on read, which I know must have angered her even more. My sister-in-law started ignoring me completely every time she saw me, but for some reason she remained involved in all the wedding activities, like when I went looking for dresses and had my bachelorette party. She took her wedding criticisms to a completely new level, openly expressing her dissatisfaction with my choices despite both my future mother-in-law and my fiancé pointing out her behavior to her several times. Her behavior persisted. One day, while discussing the centerpiece with my future mother-in-law, Kayla immediately eavesdropped and started making fun of me, saying how my wedding was classless and how that's why she wanted her brother to marry someone better. That was the breaking point for me, and I lost my composure. I yelled at her that I couldn't tolerate her constant mockery and criticism any longer and made it clear that she wasn't invited to our wedding. Kayla was shocked, incredulous, as if she had never expected me to stand up to her. Even my mother-in-law was furious with her and supported me. Later, Kayla approached Harry complaining about how I had embarrassed her and insisting that he should control me since I was going to be his wife. Harry firmly told her that he supported my decision and that if she didn't apologize, she wouldn't be invited to the wedding. Reluctantly, she sent me a sincere apology, which I saw and again left unread. With my wedding preparations, I was already exhausted and didn't want to get involved in her drama. In the end, she ended up coming to our wedding because I didn't want her to speak badly afterward. Now my wedding had a certain theme of pink and pastel tones that everyone seemed to follow without problems, including the guests. However, my sister-in-law showed up wearing a long black floor-length dress with a veil as if she was coming to a funeral. We were shocked, to say the least. My sister-in-law went around telling everyone how she was in mourning for losing her brother to another woman. During the reception, my husband could see that I felt uncomfortable with my sister-in-law's wedding attire and confronted her about it. She tried to play the victim, saying she had the right to dress however she wanted and that I was too controlling. In the end, my mother-in-law and father-in-law asked her to leave when she wouldn't stop making a scene. It was humiliating for me, and from that day, I avoided crossing paths with her. When I gave birth to my son Nate, I refused to allow my sister-in-law to be around our baby. She tried to argue about it, but my husband and his parents supported me. They understood exactly why I didn't want my sister-in-law near my baby and respected my decision. 2 years ago, my sister-in-law had a miscarriage with her then-boyfriend, Jaime, and it completely devastated her. It was really a sad moment for everyone. Harry and I felt bad for her since we already had a child, so after her miscarriage, we decided to be a bit more understanding. At first, she seemed to have changed, but over time, she had returned to being the same as before. She's always talking about how difficult her life is, how things never seem to work out for her, blaming ex-boyfriends or ex-friends for ruining things in her life. Over time, I've noticed that in her head, she's never wrong. She rarely admits any mistake in conflicts and constantly tries to get people on her side by playing the victim card. This year, she decided to get married and invited everyone except us. Harry was surprised to learn that we weren't invited. When we asked her about it, she started saying how she couldn't allow me to come because I might do something to overshadow her wedding. I called and asked her why she would think something like that when I had never done anything to her. Kayla began saying how I had decided to dress all in black at our wedding, so now she feared that I would do the same, and that's why she didn't want me at her wedding. I was furious at how manipulative she was, and I told my husband clearly. Harry spoke with his parents, and they decided to tell my sister-in-law that they would neither pay for the wedding nor attend. This reduced my sister-in-law to tears, and she started blaming me for creating this mess. My husband informed her that she had blatantly admitted her own mistakes, so she had no right to point fingers at me. But Kayla justified her actions, saying that our wedding had been a long time ago and that I should get over it. Later, Since my father-in-law and mother-in-law still refused to pay for her wedding, she approached to apologize to me and beg for forgiveness. I hate to admit it, but Kayla can be very sweet and persuasive when she wants something. I forgave her and wanted to simply leave the past behind. Her wedding to Jamie went well. We all attended and had a good time. It didn't even matter. Months later, Kayla was at our door complaining about how her marriage was falling apart. Harry and I let her stay with us for a few days, where she vented for hours about her husband. She seemed to have trouble getting pregnant, and Kayla clearly blamed Jamie for everything. I tried to talk to Kayla, but she was determined that everything was her husband's fault. When she wasn't complaining about her husband, she was hyper-focused on our lives and trying to make up things that didn't exist. For example, I generally go to the gym every morning before going to work. Sometimes when I'm running late, I take my work clothes so I can finish my workout, shower, and change clothes. My sister-in-law noticed this for some time and asked me many questions about it, like why I showered or why I even needed to go to the gym. I didn't give it much importance and told her how I like to maintain my weight and how I don't like going to the office all sweaty. She would purse her lips and nod. Eventually, things worked out with Amy, and she went back to living with him. One weekend, my husband and I went to lunch with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. My sister-in-law and Jamie had also been invited. We left our son Nate with a babysitter since he normally got bored when we adults talked for hours and wanted to stay home to play. During lunch, my mother-in-law was telling us about how one of her friends is currently getting divorced. She was telling us how her friend's husband was unfaithful to her, so she left him and took half of his assets. Suddenly, my sister-in-law interrupted to ask my husband if he and I had signed a prenuptial agreement before getting married. We stopped eating to look at her, and she acted as if I wasn't even there and looked at my husband expectantly. Now my husband is not someone who beats around the bush, so he said that since we both earn quite well, we saw no reason to make a prenuptial agreement. My sister-in-law snorted and began saying how nowadays there are many cheaters around us, and that he could be deceived at any moment. I was offended by her words and asked her to tell us exactly what she was insinuating. My sister-in-law began saying how I was definitely meeting someone because I always carried a change of clothes everywhere, and that as Harry's sister, it was her duty to warn her brother. I was shocked to hear these words. My father-in-law and mother-in-law immediately came to the rescue and lashed out at her to stop making things up and not stick her nose in other people's business. My sister-in-law, without missing a beat, continued saying how she was just trying to be there for her brother and joked if our son Nate was really Harry's child, since he didn't look exactly like him. I swear I saw my husband's face turn red with anger. I had never seen him so angry in my life. He stared Kayla in the eyes and told her that's why she still wasn't a mother, because she didn't deserve to be, and that her child would be better in heaven than with someone like her. Kayla's mouth hung open in shock. My mother-in-law and father-in-law just looked at my husband in silence and lashed out at Kayla about how she was a shameless person who tried to ruin everything because she had nothing good in her life, and how she was just a married loser who did nothing all day while her husband worked hard all day. She continued saying that instead of pointing fingers at me and asking us about prenuptial agreements, she should worry about her own marriage since she was clearly projecting. Kayla was reduced to tears and began sobbing. She looked at Jamie, who was sitting right next to her, for support, but he didn't say a word. I had never seen my husband lose control this way. In the end, he got up from his chair to go to the bathroom. My husband was furious. My mother-in-law came to calm my husband while I rubbed his hand. He told me how sorry he was for what his sister had said about our son, and I nodded because I understood how annoying she could be. I was quite happy that my husband defended me so publicly since I had endured enough from Kayla over the years. After he calmed down, he apologized to Jamie, but completely ignored Kayla. After lunch that day, we had no further contact with Kayla. Her behavior was not only affecting me, but also my husband. We simply blocked her everywhere so she couldn't contact us. My in-laws talked to us about the lunch and agreed that Kayla had gone too far this time. They could see how their son, who was usually calm, had lost control after Kayla had been provoking him. It's been a year since we spoke to her and everything has gone well. 2 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant. It was a complete surprise since we weren't even trying to conceive. My husband and I felt blessed to welcome another family member. We were waiting for the right moment to inform everyone and decided to reveal it on my husband's birthday. My in-laws wanted to celebrate Harry, so they organized a big party for him in their backyard. Our family and close friends had also been invited. My sister-in-law must have found out about this from others and decided to make an appearance. My husband and I were surprised to see her, especially when my sister-in-law came and hugged Harry, telling him how much she had missed him and how much she regretted their last conversation. My husband took my hand and told his sister that she should apologize to me for the things she said last time. My sister-in-law nodded, turning to me and apologized. She told me she had been going to therapy for the past few months and had realized how wrong she had been to humiliate me that way. I didn't believe a word of what she was saying, but didn't want to be rude to her in front of everyone, so I simply nodded. My in-laws spoke to us and told us they had no idea she would come, assuring us that if we didn't feel comfortable, they would kick her out because this was a party for my husband. But Harry didn't want to make a scene, so we agreed to let it pass. Throughout the party, I could see my sister-in-law laughing and mingling with everyone, which was a bit strange. She seemed too positive, which wasn't her characteristic at all. But she had mentioned going to therapy, so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. When it came time to cut the cake, Harry gave a moving speech about how he considered himself the luckiest man in the world, grateful for another year with a wife like me. His words made me blush with joy, and I couldn't help but appreciate the fact that my husband and I remained deeply in love, just as we were when we started dating so many years ago. Then Harry and I decided to share exciting news with everyone. With smiles on our faces, we announced that we were expecting a baby, and everyone took a moment to process it before exclaiming with happiness. My mother started crying and came to hug me. My in-laws also had tears in their eyes as they congratulated Harry and me. Everyone was so happy for us and excitedly asked if we had already thought of names for the baby. The only discordant note was my sister-in-law, who looked at us stunned. I thought maybe she was taking time to process it, but then her expression changed and she simply walked away from us looking angry. I was a little worried, thinking if she was going to ruin another celebration for us, but I got distracted with other people who came to talk to me. When it came time to serve lunch, I saw my sister-in-law approach me smiling. She had a plate of food in her hands and handed it to me, announcing loudly that she personally wanted to serve me food because she was so happy about my pregnancy. As she handed me the plate, she even made a comment about how she wanted to make up for all the time she had been rude to me in the past. I nodded and graciously accepted, and then she walked away. I was about to start eating, but fortunately, I noticed that she had put shrimp on my plate. It's a fairly well-known fact in my family that I'm allergic to shrimp, so I was surprised that my sister-in-law would even serve me this. I shook my head disappointed and got up to look for my own food. At that moment, Jamie approached to congratulate me on my pregnancy. We talked a bit and he asked me why I wasn't eating. I pointed out how my sister-in-law had served me shrimp, probably by mistake. So Jamie told me not to worry and took the plate from my hands. He told me he could keep that plate since he liked eating shrimp and that I could get a new plate for myself. I smiled, nodded, and walked away. Not even an hour passed when Jamie started feeling sick. Everyone stopped eating worried and looked at him as he tried to get up from his seat. Harry and Kayla ran to him worried. Jamie pointed to his plate and then his throat. We were surprised when we understood that something was clearly wrong with him from what he had eaten. Kayla ran to check his plate and her eyes widened. She turned to look at me and asked if I had given my plate to her husband, and I nodded. In the midst of the chaos, someone called an ambulance and they quickly took him to the hospital. Kayla cried uncontrollably through all this and kept looking at me with anger. Later, we were informed that Jamie had been poisoned. I almost fainted when I heard this, since I knew, unlike the others, that the plate was originally for me. Any poison that Jamie might have ingested could have poisoned me and my baby. Harry, my in-laws, and my parents still have no idea about this. They called the police to take the food he had eaten as evidence, since no one had any idea what was in the food that had caused this to him. Right now, as I write this, Jamie is still recovering in the hospital while Kayla stayed with him overnight. My husband and I have been answering calls from family members asking what happened to Jamie and who could have poisoned him. My in-laws are shocked by what happened and are staying at our house because they're afraid to return to theirs. No one has any idea what happened suddenly when everything was going so well. I'm afraid to tell everyone that the plate originally belonged to me and how Kayla came and served it to me. If this becomes an investigation, I'll have to tell the police the truth. I feel extremely guilty about what happened, but most importantly, now I'm extremely worried about what my sister-in-law might do to me, since she clearly has no limits. I don't want to be around her, nor can I let my children be around her. Update. Wow, thanks for the thousands of comments on this post in a matter of a few hours. I never imagined I would receive so many responses. My hands were shaking when I wrote this earlier, and I haven't been able to sleep, despite what everyone keeps saying. I feel some responsibility for my brother-in-law's incident. I should have thrown away the plate, but I don't know why I let him take it from me. I keep crying, thinking if something happens to him. My husband knows something is wrong and has been close to me. He thinks I'm just upset, but has no idea what I know about his sister. I agree with the comments that I need to sit down and talk to everyone calmly. I don't know if everyone will believe me, but my in-laws have security cameras installed throughout the house, and since this birthday party was happening in their backyard, I'm sure they can check on their cameras that Kayla was the one who offered me that plate. I'll talk to everyone tonight and then update. Update 2, so we talked. And I'm very grateful to have the best in-laws in the world, since they're already staying with us. I sat down with them and Harry during dinner to tell them I had something important to tell them. I started by taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation on my shoulders. With everyone gathered, I recounted the events of the birthday party, explaining how my sister-in-law served me a plate with shrimp and how Jamie unknowingly ate it, resulting in his poisoning. As I spoke, I could see their faces. My in-laws exchanged glances. Their concern was evident, while Harry's expression went from confusion to anger. I continued expressing my fear about my sister-in-law's motives and her previous attempts to harm me. I admitted my hesitation in sharing this information, fearing the possible consequences for me and our unborn child. My mother-in-law, being the pragmatic woman she was, immediately suggested checking the security camera footage. My father-in-law nodded in agreement, recognizing the gravity of the situation. Harry, although visibly upset, remained silent, absorbing everything that was happening. After reviewing the security footage from their camera app, the truth was undeniable. The images showed my sister-in-law offering me the poison plate and the subsequent events that led to Jamie's illness. The weight of the evidence left no room for doubt. Harry, now fully aware of his sister's intention, struggled to contain his anger. My in-laws were horrified by their daughter's actions, shocked by the measures she had resorted to create chaos. We stood stunned in silence as we struggled to understand why she would do such a thing. In light of this revelation, my in-laws have decided to turn this evidence over to the police, since this is a very serious matter. Then my father-in-law and my husband will meet with Jamie once he recovers, since he's the one who needs to press charges against my sister-in-law. I have no idea how Jamie will react, and I want to cry every time I think about how I allowed him to eat from my poison plate. I can't sleep or eat properly because I'm very worried about him. I'll update when something significant happens. Update 3. Hello everyone, I'm finally back with an update. I know it's been almost a month since my last update, but I'm a pregnant woman going through a lot right now. First things first, my in-laws turned the recording over to the police, and after seeing the evidence, Kayla was arrested. She didn't even deny the charges, since she immediately broke down, admitting everything. My husband spoke to Jamie about what had happened, and Jamie was as surprised as any of us. My husband urged him to press charges against his sister, since this was such a sinister thing to do, and told him that regardless of what he chose to do, he would always be part of our family. In the end, after Jamie recovered, he not only decided to press charges but also filed for divorce. Kayla called my in-laws crying and begging them to forgive her. It turns out Kayla is pregnant. She begged them to get her out of jail, trying to manipulate them about how they should do this for the sake of their grandchild. My father-in-law firmly told her that they were done indulging her, and that she should learn to take responsibility for her own actions. My mother-in-law is extremely sad about what's happening to her daughter, but understands that what Kayla did cannot simply be forgiven. The police found evidence that she had tampered with the food with the intention of hurting me, which in turn had gone wrong and ended up hurting her husband. She has been charged charged with multiple crimes related to food tampering, endangering life, and causing harm. She has been begging Jamie not to charge her, saying that this was my fault anyway. But fortunately, Jamie doesn't care, and his mind is set on punishing her. Her court hearing will begin soon. I don't think she can escape this time. Meanwhile, for everyone asking, my child and I are fine. My husband and I have talked, and we plan to sit down with him to tell him the truth, since we want our son to know and be alert about these situations. I know it will be a difficult but very necessary conversation with a little one. I'm also going to regular ultrasounds every 2 weeks for my pregnancy, as recommended by my doctor. We don't plan to find out the baby's gender since we want it to be a surprise. My parents know what happened with Kayla and have become very protective of me. They're worried that this might affect my psychological well-being during pregnancy, so they're encouraging me to go to therapy. I agree with them, since even though I act normally, I've developed a deep-rooted fear after what Kayla did to my food, and I'm afraid to eat any food or anything I haven't prepared myself. My husband understands my fear and is there for me every step of the way, so I hope I can overcome this irrational fear soon. Update: 8 months have passed since my last update. Kayla is currently serving time in prison. She was found guilty of the charges. I never attended her court proceedings, but sometimes my in-laws did, and told me how Kayla admitted to the court that she had felt jealous of me for years, since she never wanted a stranger to marry her brother. She had always dreamed of one of her best friends marrying my husband, which is why when he started dating me, she always tried to intimidate me. When we announced I was pregnant during my husband's birthday party, she was filled with jealousy since she was about to announce her pregnancy too. She had suffered a miscarriage previously, so she wanted to share her good news but thought we took away her moment to shine. So according to her, due to her pregnancy hormones, she got so angry that she mixed a small amount of rat poison with my food. She admitted she only wanted me to end up in the hospital but never wanted to physically harm me or the baby. Of course, the judge didn't believe her pleas, and she was sentenced to prison and will be away from our lives for quite some time. Jamie has also successfully divorced her, so he's finally free too. We've seen him throughout the months, and we continue to include him in our family activities whenever we can. He and I have talked, and I've apologized profusely for giving him my plate, but he assured me it was never my fault. I started crying when I heard that because I had been repeating it over and over in my head, wishing I had done things differently so he would never have been poisoned. I'm glad Jamie is okay now. As for Harry and me, we've welcomed a daughter into our family. Despite the lingering shadows of the past, our daughter's presence has brought warmth and light to our lives. Our son Nate is excited about becoming a big brother and has been showering his little sister with affection and love. Seeing our children bond fills our hearts with gratitude. Throughout all of this, my parents and in-laws have been there for us, helping us navigate this new chapter in our lives.